The United States has over 37 trillion in debt. Foreign buyers are walking away. China's dumping treasuries. Japan's selling. The system should have collapsed. Yet America keeps operating like nothing's wrong. But here's what the financial news doesn't cover. How? Through the exact set of plays the US has used several times before. I'm going to show them to you, and how they're doing it again. And yes, it involves cryptocurrency. America's 37 trillion in debt grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. And here's where it gets concerning. The government now spends over $1 trillion per year just on interest payments. More than defense, more than Medicare. They won't cut spending or raise taxes. So what's the solution? At least one high-ranking Russian economist and some other financial analysts believe they already know the answer. At the Eastern Economic Forum recently, one of Vladimir Putin's closest advisors just exposed what he thinks America's plan is. His name is Anton Kobyakov. He's been Putin's senior economic advisor for over a decade, architecting Russia's economic strategy since 2012. His theory involves cryptocurrency and some financial sorcery. Most people heard it and thought it sounded paranoid. Some conspiracy theory from our geopolitical enemies throwing shade at a declining dollar. But before I tell you what he thinks, I promise to show you a similar playbook the US has used several times before. 1933. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. Confiscated America's gold at $21 per ounce, revalued it to $35 overnight. A 67% devaluation. Your $100 now bought $33 worth of stuff. The government's debt became 67% cheaper to repay. 1971. President Nixon closed the gold window. Dollars would no longer be backed by gold. Foreign nations that held dollars expecting to redeem them for gold? Just kidding, promise broken. Since then, the dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power. That's not inflation. That's systematic devaluation. And here's where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. America's been doing a softer version of this continuously since 2008. It's what economists call quantitative easing and what the rest of us call printing money. Look at the money supply. From just 2020 through 2025, it grew from 15 trillion to 22 trillion, a roughly 43% increase. The government just cut the real debt burden by devaluing its currency. No default, no negotiation, just printing. What happened to everything priced in dollars? Gas up 50%, homes up 50%, food up 30%. That 37 trillion in debt still says 37 trillion on paper, but it's 43% less expensive to pay back. And here's what they're not telling you. America has run its debt reset playbook on more than one occasion, so maybe what the Russian economist said wasn't as far-fetched as some thought. According to Anton Kobyakov, America is preparing to use crypto and stablecoins to secretly devalue its entire 37 trillion in debt. Move it into what he called the crypto cloud. Then reset the system while everyone else holds the bag. But if America can already devalue through regular inflation, why do they need stablecoins? Let me show you the two forces that answer that question. Force number one, the devaluation playbook. Here's what institutions understand that retail investors don't, because almost no one in mainstream finance will mention this part. Periodically, the system needs a major reset. The debt gets too big, the contradictions become impossible to manage, something has to give. 1933 was the gold confiscation reset. 1971 was the Nixon shock reset. 2008 to now has been the quantitative easing reset. We're due for the next one. And the pattern shows it's always the same move with a new mechanism. But here's where it all starts to click. When you devalue through regular inflation inside your own borders, people feel it immediately. Grocery bills go up. Gas prices spike. Housing becomes unaffordable. CPI reports hit the news. People get angry. The pain is concentrated domestically. That creates political pressure. It limits how much devaluation you can actually get away with. At some point, citizens revolt. You vote people out. You demand change. Now here's the real magic. What if you could export that pain, spread the devaluation globally so it doesn't hit your domestic population as hard? That's what the dollar's reserve currency status has allowed for decades. When you inflate, the whole world using dollars absorbs some of the impact. But that system is breaking down. Foreign ownership of US debt dropped from 34% to 23%. China dumped roughly 25% of its treasuries. Japan's selling. These nations watched the 1971 rug pull. They watched the 2008 money printing. And here's what foreign central banks know but never say publicly: they know the playbook now. They're not buying anymore. That's the crisis hiding in plain sight. When you can't find foreign buyers for your debt, your entire system starts breaking down. Yields spike. Interest costs explode. You need a new mechanism. A way to create demand for treasuries that doesn't rely on foreign central banks that have wised up. And here's the part no one talks about. Every major devaluation in American history had a setup period where they built the new system before activating it. Roosevelt didn't just wake up one day and confiscate gold. Nixon didn't just close the gold window randomly. This is what they don't want you connecting. The mechanism gets constructed while everyone's distracted. And that construction phase is happening right now. Force number 2, the stablecoin Trojan horse. This is the mechanism Wall Street quietly understands, but retail doesn't. The Genius Act passed just a few months ago. It creates a legal framework for dollar-backed stablecoins. The requirement is simple. Every stablecoin must be backed by US Treasuries or cash. When someone gives Tether, a stablecoin issuer, $1, Tether buys Treasuries. When Circle, another stablecoin issuer, gets $1, same thing. Automatic, mandatory, built into the system. Right now, Tether holds $127 billion in US Treasuries. Circle holds $55 billion. Together, they're the 18th largest holder of US debt worldwide, bigger than Germany, bigger than South Korea. Citi forecasts that stablecoins could potentially hold more US Treasuries than any foreign country by 2030. The same year, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent projects stablecoins to hit $3.7 trillion. But here's what most people miss. They're growing faster than that, by roughly 40% in 2025 alone. And transaction volumes? Up 50% year over year. Every single one of those dollars creates treasury demand. That person in Argentina escaping inflation who buys USDT? Treasury buyer. That business in Turkey avoiding the lira who uses USDC? Treasury buyer. They're all funding America's deficit without knowing it. But here's where the genius comes in. And I mean that sincerely. This is brilliant in a dark way. Stablecoins not only solve the foreign buyer problem, they also solve the distribution problem. See, when America inflates the traditional dollar, the devaluation happens inside the banking system. It's centralized. It's visible. People can track money supply. They can see the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. They know what's happening. But no one talks about this mechanism. With stablecoins, the system looks decentralized. It looks like private innovation. Tether is a private company. Circle is a private company. Apple could issue a stablecoin. Meta could issue one too. It doesn't carry the same political baggage as the Federal Reserve printing money. It's harder to point at a single institution and say, "You're devaluing our savings." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, every stablecoin issuer is required by law to buy treasuries. The demand is guaranteed, the distribution is global, and when the devaluation comes, it doesn't hit American citizens first and hardest. It hits everyone holding stablecoins everywhere. The pain gets exported worldwide. Russia's advisor called it moving debt into the crypto cloud. That's pretty close. And this is where it gets clever. Think of it as distributed liability. When your debt is held by foreign central banks, they can dump it. They can walk away. But when your debt is backing hundreds of millions of stablecoin users scattered across every country, embedded in their daily payment systems, they can't coordinate an exit. They're stuck. And here's what you won't find in any economics textbook. There's already precedent for the mechanism Russia is warning about. In 1985, the US and 4 other countries signed the Plaza Accords. They agreed to devalue the dollar by 25% over 2 years. It was coordinated, it was planned, it worked. A 25% devaluation by international agreement. This time, they don't need international agreements. They just need adoption. Once stablecoins are embedded everywhere, once Treasury demand is guaranteed through the system, the devaluation can happen through simple inflation of the base currency, or through direct depeg, a fancy way of saying stablecoins will no longer be backed one-to-one by dollars. Either way, the result is the same. Debt burden drops. Holders lose purchasing power. They don't default, they devalue. So where are we in the cycle? Phase 1 was legislation and foundation building, the Genius Act passing, regulatory frameworks being established, getting approved issuers in place. This wrapped up in early 2025. We are in Phase 2 right now. Stablecoin adoption is accelerating, up 40% in 2025 alone. More companies getting approval to issue. Integration into payment systems. The goal, 3 to 4 trillion by 2030. Phase 3 is the devaluation trigger. Once enough dollars are distributed globally through stablecoins, the reset happens. Could be through traditional inflation, or a revaluation event, maybe both. Debt burden drops, dollar purchasing power drops, everyone holding the tokens shares the pain. And here's how you'll see it coming. 3 signals. First, acceleration in stablecoin adoption beyond current projections. Second, more large corporations announcing their own stablecoin issuance. And third, if you start hearing official narratives about digital dollar modernization or bringing the dollar into the 21st century. That language is the marketing for Phase 3. The pattern is always the same. Build the mechanism. Get adoption. Activate the devaluation. 1933, 1971, 2008, and now. The playbook doesn't change. Only the tools evolve. You'll never hear this on the news. They'll frame stablecoins as innovation, as progress, as making finance more accessible. And maybe that's true on the surface. But the underlying mechanism is the same one America's been running for a century. They don't default, they devalue. How do you protect yourself? Diversify into defensive stocks, commodities, and hard assets. Oil, gold, and real estate. Consumer staple and energy stocks. These tend to outperform in inflationary environments. And none of this is personal financial advice. This is education so you can build your own plan. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe. We publish fresh content several times a week to help you understand the economy and protect and grow your wealth, and keep the momentum going. Watch Why the Stock Market Hasn't Crashed Yet. What they don't want you to know. It's on the screen. If you want to get your financial house in order, I've put some links in the description that may help. Check it out. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.